Not.
You think of heavy velvet curtains, the smell of cheap incense, maybe a dimly lit parlor with someone hovering over a crystal ball.
Yeah, it feels like a relic. Something
Yeah.
fundamentally irrational or deeply rooted in spooky folklore or, Hollywood tropes.
Absolutely.
But that is exactly what we are stripping away today. So welcome to this deep dive. Today we are unpacking a single, incredibly dense repository of history, which is the Wikipedia page on the occult.
It's a massive topic.
It really is. We're going to look past the curses and the black magic stereotypes, to uncover what this concept actually means historically. We're going to see how it functioned as early science and how humanity's relationship with the hidden forces of nature has evolved right alongside our greatest technological leaps.
And to really understand that evolution, we have to start at the very root.
Mm.
Because the etymology of the word itself sets up a framework that just changes how you view everything that comes after.
Okay, let's get into it.
So the term occult derives directly from the Latin word occultus. And literally translated, it just means clandestine, hidden, or secret.
Hidden. So not necessarily spooky or demonic, just hidden.
Right, exactly. For centuries, it was simply used to describe knowledge of the hidden.
Which is fascinating because today we use occult as basically a synonym for paranormal, right? We contrast it directly with science.
Yeah, that's the modern binary.
Science is the knowledge of the measurables, the things we can see and test. And the occult is the unmeasurable ghost in the room. But in the 16th century, those boundaries didn't really exist, did they?
Not at all. I mean, Rudder Hanegraaff, he's a really prominent Dutch scholar of esotericism. He points out that these 16th century occult sciences were actually systematic, rigorous investigations of nature.
They were real science for the time.
Yes. The people practicing them were constructing these complex theoretical frameworks to understand natural processes. They were essentially early scientists. The key difference is that their science relied on a foundational belief in what they called occult qualities.
I really want to break down this idea of occult qualities because understanding this fundamentally shifted how I look at history. An occult quality wasn't a demon or a spell.
No, not at all.
It was simply a property of nature that had no known rational explanation at the time. And the classic everyday example from the Middle Ages is magnetism.
Oh, it is the perfect example. Like, put yourself in the shoes of someone in the 13th century encountering a lodestone.
Just a naturally magnetized piece of rock.
Right. You hold this rock near a piece of iron, and the iron violently snaps to it across an empty space.
Like magic.
Exactly. There's no sticky resin. There's no physical hook. It is an invisible, undeniable force. And because the thinkers of the time couldn't measure the magnetic field,
Right, they had no tools for that.
and they couldn't explain the why or the how of that pull, the phenomenon was categorized as an occult quality. It was undeniably real. You could see the result, but its internal mechanism was hidden from human understanding.
Which brings us right back to Isaac Newton and the apple. When Newton proposed his theory of gravity, the dominant scientific framework was a very mechanistic one.
Very much so. Gears and levers.
Yeah, scientists believed that for an object to move, something physical had to push it or pull it, physical contact. But Newton was proposing action at a distance, this idea that the Earth could pull an apple from a tree or the moon could pull the oceans to create tides without physically touching them.
Exactly. And to mechanist scientists at the time, action at a distance sounded exactly like the sympathetic magic used by astrologers.
Wow.
It was dismissed as an occult concept because it relied on an invisible, hidden force rather than a physical, measurable mechanism.
So wait, let me see if this tracks. Calling gravity occult back in the 17th century is basically how astrophysicists talk about dark matter today, right?
Oh, that is a brilliant analogy.
Because it's a force we absolutely know is acting on the universe. We can literally see its gravitational effects on the rotation of galaxies. But because we can't fully measure it or capture it or explain what it actually is yet, it's effectively hidden knowledge.
Yes, exactly. Occult was basically a placeholder for the irreducible mysteries of the natural world. It was where scientists put the things they knew existed but couldn't yet map.
But then something changes.
Right. A massive cultural shift happens during the Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century. The scientific method becomes much more rigid, and the very concept of what constitutes science begins to rigidly exclude anything that cannot be empirically measured and proven.
So anything relying on hidden qualities just gets evicted.
Completely evicted. Occultism starts to be framed as intrinsically incompatible with mainstream science. It gets pushed entirely out of the laboratory.
But the belief in the hidden doesn't just disappear. I mean, if the Enlightenment kicks the occult out of the realm of physics and astronomy, it has to find a new home. It has to adapt.
It does.
And the shift leads to what is arguably the most surprising twist in the historical record. Because to find the birth of modern occultism as a defined movement, we have to look at 19th century France.
Right. The actual noun occultism emerges in the 1850s. It was heavily popularized by a French esotericist named Eliphas Lévy. He wrote a highly influential book on ritual magic, basically claiming to revive an older, lost tradition of occult science. And then a few decades later, in 1875, Helena Blavatsky introduces the word occultism into the English language.
She founded Theosophy, right?
Yes, exactly. Theosophy was this major attempt to blend Eastern philosophical traditions with Western esotericism.
Let's pause on Eliphas Lévy for a second, because the source brings up something incredible here. The historian Julian Strube argues that Levy's specific brand of magic, the synthesis of religion, science, and philosophy, it didn't just bubble up from some ancient underground wizarding tradition.
No, it didn't.
It emerged from the very specific context of radical progressive socialism and neo-Catholic ideas.
It sounds like a total contradiction on the surface.
It sounds beyond a contradiction. I was completely stuck on this. Social reformers in the 1850s. We're talking about the era of the Industrial Revolution. People are fighting over child labor, grinding poverty, factory conditions, material economics.
Right, the real world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how does pulling out a tarot card or performing a ceremonial magic ritual help a factory worker? Like, what is the actual mechanism connecting progressive socialism to the occult?
To see the connection, you really have to look at the psychological trauma of France during that era, specifically this period known as the July Monarchy.
Okay, set the scene for us.
Think of France in the 1830s and 40s. The society is caught in this brutal tug of war. On one side, you have the explosive, grimy, alienating reality of the Industrial Revolution. People are being reduced to literal cogs in massive machines.
Just a miserable existence for the working class.
Terrible. But on the other side, the traditional moral authority of the Catholic Church has been severely weakened by decades of revolution and secularism. So you have progressive thinkers looking at a society that is rapidly modernizing, creating immense wealth for a few, but becoming aggressively, soullessly materialistic.
They are looking at capitalism and industrialization and seeing a system that might produce goods, but completely spiritually bankrupts the working class.
Precisely. And here's the crucial part. These socialists weren't rejecting scientific progress.
I weren't anti-science.
Not at all. They didn't want to go back to the Dark Ages. They loved the forward momentum of science, but they were deeply feeling the spiritual void that it left behind. The French scholar Antoine Fèvre notes that these thinkers wanted an alternative to the, quote, vacuousness of materialism.
Vacuousness of materialism.
Yeah. They wanted to cure the spiritual emptiness of the modern age by building a new scientific religion.
So they were trying to engineer a system that organizes society fairly, but also feeds the soul. They wanted to take the ancient wisdom of what they considered true religion and systematize it, to make it as progressive and reliable as a steam engine.
Exactly. They believed that true social emancipation had to include spiritual emancipation. I mean, if you only fix the economy but ignore the hidden depths of the human soul, you haven't really freed anyone.
That makes so much sense when you frame it like that.
And this desire to merge the spiritual with the scientific leads directly to how modern scholars understand the occult today. It represents a massive shift in human psychology.
Right. And our source, Wouter Hanegraaff, he frames this in a really compelling way. He defines modern occultism as the attempts by esotericists to come to terms with a disenchanted world.
That phrase, disenchanted world, is absolutely central to understanding this.
Let's break that down.
So, before the Enlightenment, during the era of traditional esotericism, the world was inherently enchanted. The irreducible mystery of God, spirits, demons, and magic, it was just an accepted baseline of reality.
Right. If your milk spoiled overnight, maybe a spirit did it.
Exactly. Or if you got sick, it was a curse or spiritual imbalance. The magic was just baked into the landscape.
It was just part of the furniture of everyday life.
Right. But a post-Enlightenment, secular society eradicates that mystery. The scientific method explains the bacteria in the milk. It explains the cellular mechanism of the disease. It maps the orbits of the planets. The magic is systematically drained out of the landscape.
So an older medieval esotericist lived in a world where magic was everywhere. But the modern occultists, the ones emerging in the 19th and early 20th centuries, They are living in a completely different reality.
A very demanding one.
Yeah, like the spiritualists holding seances or groups like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn who are basically trying to create a university curriculum for ceremonial magic. They're living in a world that aggressively demands proof.
They're living in the age of the laboratory.
Exactly. And our source notes that these modern occultists often distance themselves from traditional faith-based Christianity. Instead, they sought proofs and demonstrations by recourse to scientific tests or terminology.
They are essentially adopting the language of the victor. I mean, if empirical science is the new unquestionable authority in society, then spiritual truths must be proven scientifically if they are to survive.
They didn't want to just pray, they wanted to test.
Right, you had spiritualists trying to literally weigh the human soul, or using terms like vibrations, frequencies, and magnetism to explain ghosts.
So let me get this straight. Modern occultists are fundamentally spiritual scientists trying to peer review the paranormal.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Is modern occultism just a massive, complex coping mechanism for humanity losing its sense of wonder?
Well, coping mechanism might sound a bit reductive, but the mechanics of it are exactly that. It's a survival strategy for human spirituality in an increasingly secular, mechanical age.
It's adapting to survive.
Yes. By shifting the focus away from dogmatic, organized religion, these occultists placed a massive emphasis on the spiritual realization of the individual. They were basically telling people, you don't need a priest to act as a middleman, and you don't need to reject the scientific method. You can discover and test the hidden divine forces within yourself.
And that focus on the individual is huge because it doesn't stay confined to secret societies. It lays the groundwork for massive cultural movements in the 20th century.
Oh, without question. This specific, highly individualized flavor of occultism strongly influenced the New Age movement and the human potential movement in the latter half of the 20th century.
Which is everywhere now.
Everywhere. The idea that you can optimize your spiritual self, often using a buffet of practices drawn from Western ceremonial magic, psychology, and non-Western traditions like yoga, that all traces back to this 19th century desire to systematize the soul.
But as mainstream science becomes even more specialized in the 20th century, the gap between the laboratory and the seance parlor widens again, doesn't it?
It does.
Occultism can't keep up with quantum physics or molecular biology in the lab, so it has to mutate once more. And it bleeds heavily into pop culture. By the 1970s, thanks to writers like Colin Wilson, the term the occult becomes a noun that functions as an intellectual wastebasket.
It's such a great term, an intellectual wastebasket.
It really paints a picture.
Hanegraaff notes that the occult became a catch-all category for literally anything that didn't neatly fit into either organized religion or highly specialized mainstream science. Because science rejected them all equally, they all got tossed into the same bin.
So what's in the bin?
Spirits, fairies, parapsychological ESP experiments, UFO abductions, vampires, crystal healing, channeling it all gets thrown into the occult wastebasket.
It's like the junk drawer in your kitchen. You have a battery, a rubber band, and a strange key, and they have literally nothing in common other than the fact that they don't belong anywhere else.
That's exactly what it is.
But out of this messy pop culture soup, a fascinating new concept emerges within the industrial music scene of the late 20th century. The musician Genesis P. Orridge coins the term occulture.
It's a brilliant neologism. I mean, think about industrial music for a second. It was all about breaking down the boundaries between human bodies and machines using synthesizers, sampling, and mechanical noise. They were treating audio cables and broadcast signals as the new magic wands.
Wow, okay.
And the scholar of religion Christopher Partridge took that term, occulture, and applied it academically. He defines it as the new spiritual environment in the West.
New environment.
Right. It's the reservoir, the cultural soil in which new spiritualities are growing today. It's no longer just a fringe, hidden thing practiced in secret lodges. It's part of the everyday cultural air we breathe. It's in our movies, our music, our video games.
And if the occult has always been an attempt to use frameworks and tools to measure the hidden world, it makes perfect sense that occultism would evolve right alongside our modern technology. Media theorists have a field day with this, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Jeffrey Sconce and John Durham Peters, they point out that occult movements historically utilize new media and apparatuses as tools to reveal hidden realities.
It is a recurring historical pattern. Think about the invention of the telegraph in the 19th century. Suddenly, you have invisible messages traveling instantaneously across vast distances through copper wires.
Right.
To the average person, that is practically magic.
It is magic. I mean, if a copper wire can carry a human voice across an ocean, why wouldn't you think you could tune that same frequency to carry a signal across the veil of death to the spirit world?
Exactly.
Every time a new communication technology is invented, whether it's photography, the telegraph, radio, television, occultists immediately adopt it to try and capture the hidden laws of nature.
It's like they're upgrading their lab equipment.
Yes. The cultural critic Eric Davis explores this deeply in his book Technosis. He views both ancient and modern occultism through the lens of cybernetics and information technology. The screen becomes the new crystal ball. The digital network becomes the new astral plane.
This makes total sense when you look at modern paranormal investigation. Think about the ghost hunters you see on YouTube or cable TV today. They aren't casting circles of salt on the floor while reading from ancient, dusty tomes.
No, they're using gadgets.
Exactly. They are walking around abandoned prisons with EMF readers, infrared cameras, and digital audio recorders. We've literally gone from alchemy and brass astrolabes to trying to decode the afterlife using a Wi-Fi signal and a battery pack.
And that transition is the perfect synthesis of everything we've been uncovering today. From Newton trying to scientifically explain the invisible pull of gravity to 19th century socialists trying to engineer a measurable scientific religion to save the working class.
Right, up to today.
Up to someone today analyzing digital audio frequencies for electronic voice phenomena. The occult has always been humanity's way of standing at the very edge of our current technological and scientific understanding, looking out into the dark and trying to find the hidden laws of reality.
It really reframes the entire concept. I mean, we started this deep dive thinking about heavy velvet curtains, crystal balls, and secret spooky rituals.
The Hollywood stuff.
Right. But when you look at the actual journey, from the Latin root simply meaning hidden knowledge, to Newton's misunderstood gravity, to Levy's socialist magic, and finally to modern culture and cybernetics, it's not a story of irrational people rejecting reality.
Not at all.
It's the story of people desperately trying to understand it.
The ultimate takeaway here is that the occult is not the opposite of science. It is the shadow of science.
The shadow of science. I love that.
Yeah, whenever society leaps forward scientifically, whenever the light of rational understanding gets brighter and illuminates more of the world, it inevitably casts a new shadow. And the occult is right there in that shadow, adapting to the new language, reminding us that humans will always crave mystery, meaning, and a connection to the fundamental forces we just can't quite measure yet.
It's a reminder that no matter how advanced or mechanized our society gets, we still desperately want the universe to hold a little bit of magic.
Definitely.
Which leaves me with a final thought I want to put out there for you to mull over. If the occult, at its core, simply means the study of hidden forces that dictate our world forces, that have undeniable effects, but no easily understandable explanation for the average person.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Think about the invisible, highly secretive algorithms controlling our social media feeds, dictating our financial markets, and shaping our digital lives. Most of us, and honestly even the people who code them sometimes, have no idea how they actually reach their conclusions.
It's a total black box.
Right. They operate at a distance. They shape our behavior, our politics, and our society in profound ways we can't fully see, measure, or predict. So aren't those black box algorithms the ultimate occult science of the 21st century?
That is a chilling but entirely historically consistent way to look at it. We are still trying to map the hidden forces pulling at us, only now the digital crystal ball is just sitting right in our pockets.
Something to think about the next time your phone, miraculously, knows exactly what product you were just talking about with a friend. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden history of the occult. Keep questioning the systems around you. Keep looking beyond the obvious explanations, and keep exploring the hidden connections in the world.
Welcome to today's deep dive. You know, normally when you think about discovering something huge, like a new continent or a new island, you just picture explorers physically sailing out into the unknown until they literally bump into it.
Right, because seeing is believing, supposedly.
Exactly. Seeing is believing. But for this deep dive, We are pulling from a really comprehensive Wikipedia overview of Neptune, and it just completely flips that whole idea on its head.
Oh, cool.
Because finding the farthest known planet in our solar system wasn't like sailing to a new island at all. It was more like realizing there's a hidden room in your house purely because you felt a strange draft in the hallway.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah, and the map just told you a room simply had to be there to explain the breeze, you know?